Welcome to Read the Bible with me with Steve Hernandez. I'm Steve Hernandez. Ooh, we got a hot show coming at you. But in order for those shows to continue, we need you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe at the Apple Podcast app and subscribe on Spotify. Leave a review on the Apple thing and we'll read it. Read any I don't know if we'll read comments. Everyone's so nice so far because we haven't blown up yet, but it's going to start getting mean soon. I'm sure of it. Do we have any new reviews for the Apple one, Gerardo? Gerardo Alacron, my super producer.
Hi.
Also of Isimo podcast fame. If you're not watching Isimo with him and Dominic and Ryan, you're missing out. You'll learn about a bunch of great Mexican shit. Why not, right?
Yeah. There was one review I saw over the week.
Okay.
Because the last one we read was your beautiful wife, Julia Loken.
Yeah.
So fucking funny. This is everything that people have ever thought surrounding church, but in the funniest way possible. And their name is Sweet Hell Is Mine.
Oh, wow. I don't think I know that. That's great. Yeah. I've talked to a few people have reached out for me, some former people who were in my youth group and stuff. People are talking to me about the podcast. I'm really excited, if only for those things. You know, the church has really fucked up a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why people of our generation have just almost rejected God. It's kind of why we're doing the podcast is I don't want to just give it to them because they fucking suck. Most of them suck. Most of them voted for Trump. When Trump held up the Bible like this, most of them were like, yeah, this guy rules. And the God that I know I don't think he hates Trump, but he would deplore that kind of activity. So keep coming, keep watching, keep subscribing.
And there's Nick Terry says a poetic masterwork by a Bible sommelier. What does that mean?
Sommelier?
Yeah.
You don't know what a wine sommelier is?
No, I my biggest regret about quitting alcohol is never getting into wine.
It's just worse. I mean, it's just another thing to miss. I miss it. Going wine tasting with a woman is the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's so romantic and hilarious. You just slowly get drunk with them, go to winery to winery. You're wasted finally. You just go home and make all sloshy love. Nobody's coming.
Yeah, dude, I'm there for the sloshy love, dude.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, your girl seems like so much fun to get drunk with, and you'll just never be able to get drunk with her.
Yeah, she got fucking hammered on Friday, and I was upset about it. But it was. I got upset with my dad because I told her in front of everyone, hey, she's not drinking anymore because she was half pissed, tipsy.
Oh, you went with your family to Palm Springs this weekend?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, go on.
And so my family was trying to get her more and more drunk, and then I was like, hey, nobody give her any more drinks, Yeah. And then she was like, okay, all fucked up. And then my dad comes out of nowhere with the fucking tray of tequila shots, and he's like, you want a shot, Maria? I was like, no, what the fuck, Dad?
My family, because my dad stopped drinking when we were 10 or 11, and alcohol was such a, my dad comes from such a dark family, full of abuse and all this shit, that it was never funny. Yeah. All of our alcohol problems were dark.
Yeah.
Even me, when I drink and black out and stuff, I think I tap into that generational thing where it's oh, I've got some dark shit under there. So the idea of having a Mexican family where everyone's drinking margaritas and doing shots, that always sounds so fun to me, but it's just not in the cards for my family.
Dog, my family got fucked up.
It was awesome though, right?
It was dope. The second day was way better. The first day was hell. They kept asking me to see the stuff I create, podcasts and whatnot.
When they're drunk?
Yes. And then so I'll put it on because they're good salesmen. They wanted to see the shit, whatever. And then stuff just kept happening to where nobody, and then it looks like I'm an idiot. The stuff they're watching is why would you say that?
They weren't paying attention.
Exactly.
Yeah. That kind of thing too.
It's art as hell.
Yeah. All the time when you're put the thing on and people start talking over it, and I'm like, we don't have to do this right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Either respect it and watch it, or we could turn it off. I didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for this.
Dude, the biggest thing is when people pull their phone out while they're watching something you made. I get so mad with them, and I tell them every time, this is my biggest pet peeve, and you're fucking doing it right now,
dude. But overall, you had a good weekend, right?
No, I didn't. I'm just kidding. Yeah. It was great. It was awesome. But to finish that one off, funny, informative, and finally proves Steve is the God of the Bible.
You hear that? I'm the god of well, no, Nick Terry, thank you so much for that. Nick Terry's my friend Lindsay Adams' boyfriend. But honestly, very critical guy in a good way. He's been around comedy for 13 or 14 years, maybe longer. And Nick's been a big fan of the podcast. So for Nick to like the podcast, I really appreciate it. It really does mean a lot to me because he's hateful.
Yeah.
I don't think he said no. He likes my stuff, but for him to like write the review, I really appreciate it, Nick. You write a review, and we'll read it right here on air. We really appreciate it. It helps us shoot up the charts. So please leave that review. Gerardo and his lovely girlfriend Maria, and then my friend Pablo Goldstein. We all went last Wednesday after we recorded. We went to the Dodger game for Fernando Mania night for the first night of Hispanic Heritage Month. Your girlfriend had never been to a Dodger game before.
Never in her life.
And it was a very boring game. I want to state that to everybody. Usually the games aren't that boring, but it was like this is like what baseball's all about, folks. And I go to Dodger games all the time, so there's usually 8-4, lots of runs. This one there was a few innings where I was just like, Maria was just sitting right next to me. It's her first one. I'm like, but did she have fun?
Oh yeah, we had a blast, dude.
Good.
It was fun because me and you were both like outrageous the whole time.
Yeah. I'm telling you, when I go to, I am famously not very fun. I want you to know that about me. I'm not a fun guy. I don't like to play games or to be like, ho, 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 ho. You know, I like to read books. I like to watch movies. I like to have conversations. I like to podcast. But I also like baseball games. And if you're going to be at a baseball game, in my opinion, you are there for the game. So you do everything they tell you to do. So to me, that's when I go. You go, and then they tell you, clap. clap your hands. I'm like clapping. I'm like, yeah. When I'm doing all that stuff, I'm cheering loud. Take me out to the ball game. I got my arms around each other. We're eating hot dogs. We're eating fries. We're singing. I'm screaming out things at the opposing players. I get so loud. I have so much fun. If you go to a baseball game, that's what you're supposed to do. And so I think that might be why I love the game so much, because it's so like theater. Even at the end when they play I Love LA by Randy Newman, you know, I like to sing the lyrics. I like to dance around and shit. Yeah, it's so fun. Even though, have you ever listened to the lyrics to that song?
No, I haven't.
It's so funny because the streets he names and everything, they're like the poorest streets. It's like homeless people.
Yeah.
So all the stuff he says about LA is basically, this place is dirty, it fucking sucks. And then of course the Dodgers are like, we'll make that our song.
This song slaps, homie.
And yeah, it's almost like Born in the USA with Bruce Springsteen, how that song is about like, we fucked up in Vietnam and all the shit, but everyone's like, I was born in the USA too. Now, did you know? I don't know if you knew, but
also before you go on, I think the Patreon dropped. So if you guys haven't already,
okay, yes, the Patreon's dropped by now. Yes, for sure.
Yes.
And we are going. So we're all, we're forward. We're 2 weeks ahead of you right now. So at this point, we're going to church. We're going to Chad Veach's church on Sunday. So you'll have that review. Please subscribe. I had my in-laws ask to subscribe too. So please subscribe. I'm going to start putting up a lot of content there. Not even kind of. Like I've said in the past, I love podcasting. I love doing all this stuff. Gerardo's the visual mastermind. But if I'm going to start doing interviews, all this crazy shit, whatever. So whatever shit that he's busy, I'm going to still jump in there. I'm going to make it worth your money. And then I also want to start a real community in there too. So we can start sharing clips, talking about God more. The more I'm doing this thing, the more I'm just like, okay, I'm straight into this shit. Like people are into Pokemon or like anime. I'm like, we found a new pastor that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go to his church, but I'm going to Chicago. By the way, if you're in Chicago, I'll need a ride. The first mega church that I went to is Willow Creek, right outside of Chicago. So I'm going to need a ride, but I thought, oh shit, I'm going to Chicago early November. I'm like, fuck, I'm going to Willow Creek. I can't wait to go there again. And then I started thinking, I think this is something I really would love enough to just start traveling around the country. And obviously I want to take you, Gerardo.
Yeah.
But we could do comedy and then go to church on Sunday and like go to these big churches. You're going to see, you've never been to a church like this, right?
No, I've been to the Chino Hills mega church, and that was an experience of me.
Oh yeah, that's what is it called? Crossroads?
Or I think it's called Crossroads.
Yeah, Crossroads. Yeah, in Chino Hills. That's a big one. That's good. These other ones are like, we'll go to Saddleback in Orange County. We'll go to Chad Veach's church. We'll go to the new pastor that we're talking about, Mosaic. We can go to. These are all in LA, but there are places all across the country where I want to start mapping these motherfuckers out.
Okay.
But Willow Creek is the first one that I've been to. Their pastor, Bill Hybels, has since fallen because of a sex scandal that I want to get more into. Yeah, I mean.
This is the second time you've said a pastor's fallen into a sex scandal.
They're all going to fall. Yeah. I mean, that's what all of these kind of pastors, the ones we're reviewing and stuff, they will go down generally. Chad Veach is going to go down. The pastor reviewing today is going to go down. The only reason Dan Reeve might not go down is he's such a fucking like weirdo robot guy. Like his dad taught him, they just got a beach house, so they just go there and come back. He might break, but there's been things around his family. I don't want to get into specifics, but that family is breaking at the seams where some of the other ones have like fallen apart because you can't keep that stuff wrapped up.
Yeah.
You can't keep lying like that without bad shit happening. So I love this stuff. I'm going to start devoting my life to it as like, I think, a hobby. I just have to give my heart over to it. And up to this point, it's hard doing this podcast and doing stand up and doing all of the things at the same time.
Yes.
Hopefully, I believe we're in time to come to my show October 6th at the Yard. Brian Simpson, Megan Gailey, Chris Estrada, Jonathan Serra, Lisa Chanou. But if we're having fun, it's barely work. Did you notice those protesters at the Dodger game that jumped down? Did you know they were protesters?
Yes, I saw a TikTok about it.
Oh, you saw a TikTok about it. Let me make an apology to everyone right now. I got a couple apologies lined up. Unlike our forefathers or our Mexican dads who've never apologized in their life, I'm prepared to apologize whenever I feel like I did something wrong. 3 protesters in that day. So we had just talked. We recorded last week's episode where we were like, get over it. Get over Chavez Ravine and all that shit, which in part of me still kind of believes. But there's another part of me that when I was at the game, 3 protesters jumped down into the field and they were protesting what happened with Chavez Ravine and how Dodger Stadium was built. And they were the 3 villages that were, if you don't know, Los Angeles used eminent domain to clear out Chavez Ravine. They were supposed to... Are you okay?
Yes, yeah. My nose is like whistling.
Oh, okay. Your nose is whistling.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that.
It's probably just you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, there's
3 protesters jumped down on the field and ran across the field, and each of them had these 3 villages on their name. The 3 villages that were cleared, Los Angeles cleared out these villages from Chavez Ravine to make public housing. That was the plan. And then O'Malley, I forget his first name, the owner of the Dodgers, when he visited LA to look for a place to build a stadium, saw that area that was cleared out already, and they tore people from their homes using eminent domain. He said, I want to make it there. So instead of any public affordable housing, they just made Dodger Stadium. The people that jumped on the field, they had the 3 villages, La Lorna, Bishop, and Palo Verde, and they had those names there. So, that last week we recorded this episode, and I'm like, get over it. And then I see those protesters that same night jump down, and I'm like, if people feel strongly enough about this, I was like, I don't want to brush that off, especially these are my people. I think there's a part of us that people, Mexican people have gone through a lot of trauma that whenever you've been abused, even in regular, individuals, when they've been abused, they have this survival thing where it's like, let's just keep moving on. Let's move on. Things happen. Things suck. I know that's a Mexican way in my family a lot of times where it's like, get over it. Come on. It's okay now. It's fine. And I feel like that is true, kind of, but also it's very important to acknowledge that things were fucked up. And when something was fucked up that happened, to acknowledge that was fucked up. I think that's a big problem with America. We massacred millions and millions of Native Americans. We enslaved millions and millions of Africans. We've done terrible stuff. And I do feel like it's a Republican way to be like, get over it. Happened a long time ago. And when I was watching those protesters, so hey, good job, protesters. You made me be like, oh, fuck, maybe this is a big deal. And we went with Pablo Goldstein, and he's like, you got to read this book about it. It's called, and I bought the book that night, and I'm halfway through it. Well, you know what we should do it for Isimo? We should do it for a book review for Isimo.
Okay, yeah.
It's called Stealing Home by Eric Nussbaum, and it's great. It goes into the villages. It goes into this. this crusader who actually made the public housing stuff happen, and it goes into like baseball too.
Yeah,
and it's really easy to read and very informative. But I'm halfway through that book, and it is like heartbreaking because you could feel it's coming, and it's just typical business capitalism bullshit where the poorest people, the hardest working people, get fucked over, and so I don't know. I guess I don't want to be an activist, but I don't see why the Dodgers can't, at this point, 70 years later, put up a statue or something, right? Yeah. To the families of Chavez Ravine. And maybe if that's what those protesters want, I don't think that's too much to ask. It's not even the same fucking people anymore. But you're going to have a hard time getting rich white people to apologize.
Yeah. It's gross, dude, because Edward James Olmos did the ceremony, the opening ceremonies for that game.
Yeah.
Of, introducing Fernando Valenzuela to people that maybe didn't even know who he was, like my girlfriend,
Yeah.
And he said, what they did here at Chavez Ravine was terrible, but then they got Fernando Valenzuela and it made everything okay.
And that's really how it was. Like,
that's exactly what he said.
But the Dodgers knew, like, we need to, like, if we could ever make it better, if we did this, that really did change the way Mexicans in Los Angeles viewed the Dodgers. It was Fernando Mania.
That's so crazy.
It is crazy, but it is. I mentioned trauma and stuff before, but my dad abused me. My dad beat me till I was whatever, and I love my dad now. He said he was sorry. I remember when I was like 20 years old. I must have been like 22 or 23, and I remember he would start coming around, and I would just yell at him. I'd get drunk and I'd yell at him for like, an hour, and he'd be like, I'm sorry. Like, and he said, hey, those years I could never get back. He said, I don't remember you guys being kids. And he's like, it's one of my greatest shames, and I'm sorry. So he yelled at him for like 2 years or something like that. And then finally it's like, well, how long am I going to yell at this guy for?
Yeah.
And now I love my dad, and we get along incredibly. And, but to me, that's what you have to do with trauma. That's what Mexicans have to do. Black Americans have to do is, look, this terrible shit happened. We've got to move on. We got to deal with it. I think that's part of living. And so that is something we have to do too. But an acknowledgement of the sin of what happened would mean a lot to a lot of people. And so all those protesters and all the people who wrote in like that. I know it's kind of hard for me to say now because I blocked you on the thing, and I still stick to my thing. Don't write fucking negative shit on people you don't know their thing. I think you're a lunatic if you write negative shit on strangers' stuff. But I did learn something from that, and I'm glad that all of it happened.
Yeah.
Another apology. So funny. Last episode, we were talking about how universally loved Norm Macdonald was.
Yes.
And we do miss him, and I do love him. I think he's a genius, all this stuff like that too. But right after we said all this stuff, then all this stuff came out that he regularly would like sexually harass wait staff and women and tell women that you're not funny. I think near the end of his life, he got a little better and said, kind of like softened on those things. But there were a lot of women who came out and said, yeah, he was terrible to me. He treated me like shit. Nothing like, I think just regular creepy uncle shit where, play some grab ass. In the 80s, it was very funny. You've got to believe me on this. Just grab ass, and it was mean and dismissive and stuff like that. There have been worse men. But the way we were talking last week was like, oh, he's universally loved. But to not acknowledge those things too, I think is dishonest. So if anybody heard those stories too, that's all part of him. We live in a society, I think, where we try to like make people perfect. I understand that people, I just said that my dad used to beat me. I love him. That people are fucked up and they have all these different parts to them that, as long as they grow and don't refuse to grow, I think it's okay. But it's okay when someone dies to say, hey, they were fucked up to me too. I think that's all part of it. That doesn't lessen his comedic legacy at all. I think it's okay for people to be honest and to tell the truth. So Norm wasn't universally loved by women waiters. I'm still going to miss him. So we miss you, Norm, still. Wish you wouldn't have played that grab ass. It could have been worse, I'm sure. I found out some crazy news.
What is that?
My in-laws, Julia's parents, and my mom listen to the podcast.
Oh shit!
Yes, these are all like mixed up things, and I'm telling you about my mom. You all were here for these episodes, so I want to tell you to hold me accountable in some ways, almost like buying food for the unhoused. Yeah, my sister messaged me. She must have seen the episode 3 or 4, the one that came out when we were like talking about the vaccine and stuff.
Yeah.
My sister listened and she's like, oh, you don't say, or Julia listened. She's like, you didn't say anything. But she called my sister and was like crying. He said, Mom's crushed right now.
Oh my
Just
God.
crushed. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Oh,
and she's like, yeah, she said you told her to listen to this thing. And I was like, I would never tell her to listen to anything I do. My mom doesn't like it when I curse accidentally.
Yeah.
So I'm like, don't listen to anything I do. But she listened and she was crushed for a bunch of different reasons. And so I was like, all right. Then my sister was like texting me through the whole thing, and then and she's like, she's told me not to tell you she listened, and I was like, well, what the fuck is that? But I felt terrible about that. I don't want to make my mom sad. My mom's had a hard life. I don't want to make it harder, but I don't regret anything that I said.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about my mom. That's how I feel about my mom's relationship with God. I think she uses this to keep. I think she uses it to cope in a way that's probably unhealthy. I think a lot of people use the relationship with a God to try to make sense of their life, and they end up lying to themselves.
Parents watching your podcast and whatnot, like my dad, the first time he saw, the first time a clip did really well for Isimo, I showed my mom, and my dad happened to walk in the room. I had no intention of showing my dad.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, and she's like, you have to watch this, Juan, And he watches it, and he goes, you fucking blaming us for all your problems again? It was about how they didn't teach me Spanish.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any. Yeah, I don't blame my mom like that stuff.
There's this weird old generational thing where they deny reality. It's like, this is what you did, dog.
Yeah, and I don't. It's so funny. Even my dad, I was walking with him like at some point, and he said something about beating or something like that, and I was like, you mean like you beat us? And he was like. He's like, I didn't beat you. I was like, Dad, you fucking beat us. And he was like, not as bad as I got it. Exactly. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, yeah that's true, I guess. But and I saw my dad and his brothers do that with my grandma. My grandma was very pious woman. That's not bad to say pious, but she loved God stuff. She Joel Osteen. She liked all that shit too. But I saw them. I think they almost get to a point where kids would rather just start lying to their parents. Like, I'm going to give you this version because it's the easiest thing to be. I'm going to give you this version. You're old. You're never going to change. I'm going to make it nice for you. We'll be nice. And I feel like my relationship with my mom was getting to that place because I just don't know what to say to you. If you're fucking snorting Fox News like that, if you're voting for Donald Trump and all this stuff and you're claiming to be a strong Christian, I mean, if you're saying you want to buy a gun, like, and you love Jesus, I mean, to murder people too. I really don't have that much against guns. I know that's controversial to say, but my brother, I have a lot of people who have guns that are good people that are very safe with them. We're not going to have this conversation right now. Is all I'm saying. But I'm just saying, when my mom says, I think I'd like a gun, and I go, what for, Mom? Are you going to murder someone? And she goes, it's a crazy world out there. And I'm like, oh yeah, fucking Dirty Harry over here. Get out of here. Yeah. When you're claiming to follow a God of love, but a lot of your beliefs don't line up with that. I have been, and I think my siblings have been this way, where we're starting to handle her with kid gloves. But I don't want to be that with my mom. I want my mom to know me. And I know she hasn't seen my stand-up because everything offends her or whatever. But I want her to see my stand-up. I want her to listen to my podcast. This is who I am. I'm not ashamed of it. I stopped drinking 3 years ago. I'm trying to be a good man. I'm trying to be someone that when I talk about God, but I'm trying to not say make God proud, because I don't think there is a God like that. Yeah. But someone where I could stand upstanding, and when I die, I could be like, I did my best. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be that kind of a man. And if my mom doesn't understand it or doesn't appreciate that about me, I don't know what to tell you. But I'm saying all of this to tell you guys, I got to talk to her this week. Yeah. I'm just going to call her, but I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say because I don't know if she's going to change
Yeah.
or be willing to change, or if she's going to hear me. I don't want to fight with her, but it's just going to be a 2 or 3 long, like a breakup conversation, you know, basically.
Yeah.
But we're not going to break up, of course, but
it'll be like that feeling.
Yeah, it's that feeling where it's like, oh, fuck, I got to have this big emotional conversation with my mom that hopefully turns out okay. I'm saying all this stuff because I want to have a real, authentic relationship with my mom.
Yeah, I mean, my mom has been very. I didn't expect it. Listen, I cut my parents off a while ago, and when I did that, our relationship actually started. You know what I mean? Like where I saw them as people.
Oh,
like,
so you cut them off?
Meaning, I told my dad to eat a dick, and he called me he called me the next day.
Yeah,
because I went to visit my mom. I didn't visit my dad. You know.
Yeah.
But he came into the garage where I was and he laughed at me. And then he just walked back inside.
He just laughed at you?
Yes.
Well, did you feel disrespected?
Oh, yeah. That's literally all he did. He just walked into the garage, laughed at me, walked back inside. And then when I left, he called me. Or I called him and I told him, basically, long story short, eat a dick. You know? And then after that, he called me maybe like 2 or 3 days later. And we started to have a closer relationship in a way. I don't talk to him all the time still, but now when he sees me as an actual person. He was drunk in Palm Springs and told me he's proud of me and he loves me.
Well, you know, I don't, even my mom is like this too, and my dad, is our parents had to go through so much more than us in a lot of ways. And so they've put on all this armor. They've gone to battle with in America to get the things they've got, to buy homes and to survive and to not think about being molested and raped and beat and all this stuff. So they've got all this fucking armor on. We're second, third generation, all this crazy shit. We haven't had to put on that armor. So, you know, I want to be patient when I help my parents take the fucking armor off so that we can have something authentic. I want to be patient. I know that I've been blessed to be in the circumstances that I've been, and they haven't had that same blessing. So, but I also don't, I want to be really sad when my mom dies, and I want to leave it all on the table. I want to be like, we knew each other. I got nothing left to say to this person. I can say that about my dad. I can't say that about my mom. And so as sad as I am about this stuff, to me, I'm also like, this is all how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I really wish you wouldn't have watched my podcast. But this is a way where I said a bunch of stuff that I probably wouldn't have said to her because I would be afraid it would hurt her feelings too much.
It's crazy to me too because my mom would be so proud if I'm reading the Bible. But she looks at these little intricacies, you know what I mean? Like, the stuff we talk about, like the feelings we have towards the vaccine, all this stuff bothers them so much, but it's like, look what the podcast is about, dude. Nobody else my age is doing this. And then when you tell them that, they're like, well, you're not people your age or whatever, you know?
Well, I think that's why that's why I'm very blessed that my mother-in-law, my father-in-law are the way they are. If you guys are listening, hey, I love you guys, Jim and Elizabeth.
I also love you guys.
But they've been listening, and you know, Jim used to be a minister, a Lutheran minister, and he knows his theology. He knows his Bible. I saw him this past weekend, and they're like, "Oh my God, we love the podcast so much." They've seen my stand up a bunch of times. Yeah, I'm talking about group sex, sucking dick, getting fucked and stuff. And they're good people. I don't know what you guys say to each other.
YouTube just had an aneurysm. Fucking group sex, fucking sucking dick.
Yeah, I don't know what they say to each other when like they watch me do this stuff and they've seen me do it a bunch, and you know, whatever. But I never feel judged by them. I feel loved by them. And then I'm like, oh my God, I know that a couple weeks ago when I talked about wanting to go to the theater and suck dick or get fucked. And I'm like, oh my God. I know they've seen this stuff, but I think like they really understand that people need this. Us to be completely honest, that we don't have an agenda when we're reading the Bible, that we're looking at this authentically for what it is. But it is pretty crazy when they told me. But her dad actually gave me some references about the Book of James and what the original Martin Luther. Have you heard of? Did you know what's it called? I forget what it's called, but he nailed these like 70 things to the door of the Catholic Church. Have you heard about anything like that?
I have, but I do not remember.
That's where like Protestantism comes from.
Oh, okay, yes.
So that when this other Protestantism split with the Catholic Church, he nailed these like 80 creeds or something like that to the Catholic Church, and he said he wrote the Bible and gave the Bible to the people. That's where the printing press and all this stuff like changed everything. Because before in the Catholic Church, only the priests got to see the Bible.
Yeah.
So he's the one who changed all this stuff, and he has very specific opinions about James. And we will. Let me see if should we talk about that now? No, because I want
go for it, dude.
No. But
you want to do more research on it?
Yeah. No. I mean, I just might talk about it later.
Okay.
Because he did bring, like, we were talking about James and a bunch of the stuff too, and he answered some of my questions that I'd been bringing up, and I'm like, that's weird that happens there, because he filled me in with some insight. I know I've talked about it here. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Who gives a fuck? I'm jumping ahead a little. I know we talked about it here, but Peter and Paul were always fighting about what Christianity was. And also, I forgot, we're going to have to read the book of Acts at some point, that James was also, so it's these three guys. It's Peter, Paul, and James, and they're all fighting. And everyone expected, these three guys were like duking it out. Peter was, of course, one of the apostles, and then James was his brother who converted. But James was strictly believed that Christians should only be Jewish people as well. And so that's why in chapter 2 and stuff, where he kept talking about the law, he was still saying, Jesus helped fulfill the law. The law is still great. Paul eventually wins out. That's why what Christianity is right now, we talk about freedom in Christ and all these different things. What we think of Christianity is that Paul eventually won by helping to convert Peter, because Peter and James were stuck together. They were pissed because Paul was such a little psycho. Paul was a psycho that was murdering Christians. He was a Jewish guy, murdering them, never met them, and then he gets this vision, gets knocked off his horse, becomes this crazy Christian. But Paul had no respect for them, in a good way, I guess, too, where he said, I don't give a fuck if you were an apostle. I met God on the road, and he would fight with these guys. In Acts chapter, what is it? Let me see if I wrote it down somewhere here. But in Acts chapter...
You can look for it.
I got it. Okay. In Acts chapter 10, verse 9, Peter has this vision. I'm sure we'll go over it at some point. So they're always fighting. Peter's in the middle. James, everyone's saying Jesus came only for Jewish people, which, by the way, I do believe Jesus came just for Judeans, just for Jewish people. He did learn and grow somewhat, but these guys were basically arguing about God and Christianity and what these things wanted. We don't know what Jesus really wanted. I do think he just came for the Jewish people, but then these other guys hijacked the shit. So Paul's fighting them, and then Peter in Acts chapter 10 has this vision. He's having this vision. He just thinks Christianity should be for Jewish people, and he has this vision. He's fasting. This thing unwinds like a scroll, and there's all these animals, these beasts with 4 claws and shit like that. And God tells Peter, kill and eat. And Peter, because he's Jewish, he said, I can't eat those. Those are unclean animals. And God said, what I make clean is clean. So, whatever the fuck you say, whatever I make is clean now. And Peter took from that, oh fuck, we're supposed to let non-Jewish people become Christians. So he sided with Paul, and now we have Christianity as it is today. But that's why James, all the stuff we've read so far, he's still like thinking like about Old Testament, talking about the firm law. We're going to get into it right now, talking about one of their biggest heroes who actually helped create Islam too, but we're not there yet. Let's meet a new celebrity pastor. Of course, I'm talking about... Ooh, I'm so stoked about this guy. I'm always looking for new ones. Please hit us up at Read the Bible With Me podcast at Gmail if you know of a hip pastor that we don't know too. But this guy's name is Judah Smith. He's the lead pastor of Church Home, a church that meets weekly at the Saban Theater every Wednesday night. Justin Bieber leads worship there.
Oh, shit.
This guy's like a huge fish. I feel, because we don't know anything about this stuff yet, we're going to slowly start to find out about stuff. But Justin Bieber leads worship for this church. You might recognize him and stuff. Chad Veach is kind of corny. This guy, it's going to take a while to rap on. I just discovered him a couple days ago, so I'm going to start reading a lot of sermons and stuff and watching him. He's pretty good. He's sharp, but it's still bullshit. I want you guys to know what he does and what he's preaching. He's still full of shit. Let's play that clip from Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, it's very aggressive. Yeah. I watched it already. Here it goes.
You think it's just about judgment and justice, and it is, but it's about friendship. It's about relationship. It's about connection. He wants friendship with you. I said he wants friendship with you. He wants camaraderie with you. He wants to move with you, walk with you, talk with you, live with you. He wants to feel with you. He wants to weep with you. He wants to laugh with you. He wants to be your friend.
Well, quiet. Yes.
Oh my God, that's so funny to me, dude.
It's I hate this like feel good dumb shit. We're gonna play another clip in a little bit. This is like just what I found right off the bat. It's this weird like for me like, oh, it's like this little sweet open-hearted thing where like God wants to be your friend, and he wants to walk with you and talk with you and love you. He wants camaraderie with you. What the fuck? Do you know what camaraderie means? I can't have camaraderie with the God of the universe. I mean, it's this thing where, and it's a regular, people tease it, where evangelical Christianity, it's almost like they make God this person where, oh, I want God to have sex with me. Like, I want to fuck God. I want God to be my friend. Oh, I love you, God. God, I love you. You love me, God. Oh, and it's absolutely like, it's like this bullshit, like American thing. We know because of 12-step stuff is that the more you focus on yourself, the more miserable you're going to be. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. The more you focus on yourself, the more miserable you're going to be. This brand of Christianity teaches the opposite, is that all God wants you to do is to be happy and to be comfortable and to really not have to change. Just know that the God of the universe loves you and wants to put his arm around you and touch you and hold you. And people like that. That sounds pretty good, right?
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like I just got in a fight with God in a different room, and then this fool pulled me aside, and he's like, he wants to be with you. He wants to love you. He wants to be your friend, homie. You know what I mean?
It is like that. That's so funny. Hey, no, but he wants you. It's all this weird like shit that people are so lonely or their life is so bad, and however bad it is, but then this thing wants to take care of you, and he wants, that's so sweet, that's so nice. I'm not telling anyone to buck up or anything, but it's also so, I don't know, it treats people like they're infants.
Yeah.
People like to be infants. I mean, that's why this kind of brand of Christianity is popular, and it's in the Bible. Since the beginning of time, man always wants a king. They always want someone that they can fucking to look to and put it on. That's why these pastors are so popular. They want these pastors to have this special relationship with God, and then they kind of delve out little scraps or whatever, because people don't want to have a real singular relationship with God because it's hard and because you might be wrong, and it takes real faith. They would rather just come to something like this and, whatever you say, and then these guys fall, and then we're supposed to act all surprised when they fucking go down, when they're just like us. Like, we're supposed to give all this respect to the Bible when they were just fucking guys just like us that wrote it. James, Peter, and Paul, all they were doing was fighting their beliefs about what they thought God was, who they thought Christ was, and we're supposed to be doing that too. But people believe that God stopped talking to us 2,000 years ago, and so now God is all contained into this one book. Do you know how fucking stupid that sounds? That a living God has nothing new to say to us 2,000 years later, and yet that's what modern Christianity would have us to teach. Dude, check out this article I pulled up. This is from an article from the Daily Beast from 2019. It's called Inside Church Home. That's the name of Judah Smith's church. By the way, they've got an app. This app is a huge deal. I'm going to subscribe. I'm going to get the app, where they don't believe that a church should have a place anymore. So it's daily affirmations, daily prayer. I'm going to get the app. I'm going to look into it. I'll tell you guys about it next week.
They have 151,000 subscribers.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. They've got a shitload. This guy's huge. He has 728,000 followers on Instagram.
We're going for a big fish, dude.
Yeah, this is the big fish. I feel so stupid all that time talking about Chad Beach now. But this Daily Beast article is so funny. So he's just talking about This is how I know he's full of shit too. Some of the stuff that James talks about directly, but this is about his relationship with Justin Bieber that I love so much. Jude, we've been brothers for 10 years, Judah tells me, with an obvious affection for the pop star. The two even share a tattoo. The tattoo's, it's better at 70. A motto they have with friends. We were in, I love this. We were in Switzerland at 3 a.m. maybe, which is not too abnormal. Obviously, you're on tour. The pastor recalls, we cried a lot. And he's like, let's get tattoos tonight. And I was like, I've been waiting. I've been waiting to get tattoos with you, Justin Bieber. Oh, what a fucking loser. This guy's my age, by the way. He talks a lot about sex with his wife and stuff, too, that it's good. You know, that's good. Good for him. Now, this actually, you know, if you've been listening to podcasts, I mean, James had exact verses about what we're going to talk about this. This is from that Daily Beast article right here. One thing Judah makes no apologies for is his steadfast decision to accommodate VIPs at church home. He regularly brings them in the back door and sits them in the front row. I mean, this is what James says. What the fuck? Amazon even filmed a Church Dome reality show pilot. Judah tells me he wants to give celebrities a fair opportunity to sit in peace and quiet without being distracted or bothered.
Oh, my God.
And that church at home, he explains, is a wonderful opportunity for someone who's very well known. The book of James, last chapter, just talked about this. Do not favor rich people.
Yeah.
Do not favor these people. You should lift up poor people. Do not tell people, the rich people, here, we have a seat for you in the front row. Yeah. This is in the Bible that we just read. So that to me is so funny when you're like, dude, there's a verse in the Bible that tells you not to do this, and you piece of shit are absolutely doing this. All right, let's play this other clip. This is on YouTube from a sermon called Here I Go Again.
Right in, every time we get together as a community, we go to this book. It is a storybook. It's been called the Bible. And it is actually not a collection of principles and concepts and ideas.
That's actually what it is.
About a main character. That main character is God. His message is love for each and every one of us, and we're going to focus on that tonight. I'm really excited. I'm going to read the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 17.
This is all. I've just seen these very few things about this guy. If you didn't hear the clip, I'm sure we will. We talked a little bit over it, but he says this isn't a book about concepts or ideas about God. This is a storybook, and the main character is God. It's absolutely not that. It is people trying to figure out who God is. Men, too, by the way, because they excluded women from this conversation because that's how it was back then. That's how I know this guy's full of shit. is he really is trying to dumb this thing down to make it so dumb and so accessible. Do you know how that sounds like really cool to a dumb person? Oh, this is like basically saying, here's a movie about God.
Yeah.
It's so nice. It's so easy. It's so laid out. When it's not that, just from the simple few chapters we've read about James so far, you understand you have to have all this context, all this history. None of this really does have to do much with God, too, by the way. We're arguing, it's people arguing, trying to figure out what God is, wrestling with the concepts of God, which Jewish people believe, rabbis believe that's all God wants, is when we're discussing this, God is present in this podcast, God is present in this room. When we're talking about these concepts, trying to figure them out, that's enough. That's what the Bible's trying to do. There is no main character. He's not trying to hold our hand or to be our friend. There is no being like that. God is present always. He is a force. He's an energy. I'm not going to call him they. I might at some point. She. I might do it all. But
the goddess, dude.
Yeah. This guy is honestly, they are trying to make like this huge, mysterious concept simple. They're always trying to box God in so they can control him, hold them over people. I know that it doesn't seem that way, but they want power, they want control, and they want to maintain. I love going after these guys because they obviously care so much about their image, and image has nothing to do with God, and it really had nothing to do with Christ. I think any true follower of Christ would not look successful.
Yeah.
Because their values are not the values of this world. These guys, it's so important that they dress hip. It's so important that they have money. It's so important that their marriage looks perfect. Christ cared so little about marriage that he didn't get married. That's how much your fucking marriage means to God.
There's literally a clip of Chad Veach on his TikTok saying that same kind of like sentiment of like, it's not important to look good in this. He just got his hair done and he has like a nice ass fucking button up on, you know?
He has these like sweatshirts where like skater stuff that's like a $500 sweatshirt.
Yeah.
You know how much the stuff looks like. Oh, by the way, and I forgot to write this in the notes. I met someone who grew up next door to Chad Veach.
Oh shit!
Yeah, their house faced Chad Veach. I mean, I'm gonna have to get them on the cast if they're comfortable talking about it. And they were just telling me that, oh yeah, Chad Veach. He's just a really preppy guy.
Yeah.
It's a very conservative place in a little island off of Seattle in Washington. Everyone's rich. Of course, this guy's going to be this. Remember that modern Christianity really is just conservatism wrapped in all this cool shit. What they'll never say is that you will never see gay leadership. You will never hear them talk about abortion rights because they essentially believe what your folks believe. And they have no basis of that in the scripture either. So, yeah, they're just good. They're just people that like to feel like they're hip. But the only thing hip about them is the clothes they're wearing. Everything, they want everyone to act the same, to be the same, to this homogeneous, like fucking white bread bullshit. I don't think God has anything to do with this. Let's get in the Bible.
Yeah, here we go, dude.
What are we at? I feel like we're deep into this podcast.
We're at 47.
Okay.
Yikes.
All right.
That's gonna happen when your what is it called? Your in-laws start listening.
Well, I mean, I can't believe it's just so great that they never mentioned the like bad stuff.
Yeah,
because that one, I'm sure I didn't even talk about the gay stuff. They're just nice. They don't mention.
They're just like,
well, I'm sure they're just like, they're just nice.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. All right, so we left off right here. God damn it, I don't want to go that long, but we have to get into the Bible.
Yeah.
All right, so that last verse is my favorite one. I'm going to have to make a TikTok about this. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by what I do. You believe there is one God? Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. Okay, now we're going to pick that up right here. This is James chapter 2, verse 20. You foolish man, do you want evidence that faith without deeds is useless? Was not our ancestor Abraham considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. And the scripture was fulfilled that says Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. And he was called God's friend. You see that a person is justified by what he does and not by faith alone. Paul argues aggressively against that, by the way. He argues the complete opposite. Verse 25, finally, in the same way, was not even Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in different directions? We're never getting into that. As the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without deeds is dead. Do you know the story of Abraham?
The Abraham and Isaac? Yes. I know that story. He took his son up to the hill and was supposed to kill him.
Yeah.
And then God was like, nah, fam, don't do it.
Let me read it. Did you know that... Okay, quick Abraham update, so I don't have to... so if people don't know who Abraham is... this is all Genesis.
Update. So. What's Abraham up to?
Here we go. Here we go. Genesis chapter 22. So, a quick summary of Abraham, if you have no idea. Abraham is like very, very early, one of the first people to hear from God at all. This is early shit in Genesis. Like the Tower of Babel happened like three chapters ago.
The Tower of Babel?
Babel.
Got him.
And the Tower of Babel had like 3 chapters ago. This is like, man barely had fire. They're barely cooking food. God made a promise to Abraham and his wife Sarah. He said, I'm going to give you a kid. I'm going to give you a son. He was already like 99 years old. Sarah laughs at him, and then God says, I heard you laugh at me. It's like pretty weird.
Yeah.
But they can't wait. God's like, I'm going to give it to you. They're old. They're like, whatever.
By the way, I don't know if that's like a fucking military helicopter or what. It was like really loud though.
It does sound military grade. Forgive us. We're actually podcasting from Guantanamo. Bin Laden. So he promises this. They end up taking his second wife, Hagar. He gets her pregnant with. Are you just laughing at her name?
Hagar?
Yeah. Let me double check. This is all very early stuff.
He takes his wife, Helga.
Hagar. And, Sarah says, get her pregnant. I want you to have a kid. So she has Ishmael. Eventually, Sarah, God gives him a son, Isaac, through Sarah. They send Ishmael and Hagar away. Did you know that is what happens with Ishmael? That's Islam.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So this is where the branch of Islam and Judaism and Christianity, Abraham is the father of Islam.
Abrahamic religions.
Yes, that's where it comes from. And so his kid, his bastard kid or whatever, they send him away. That becomes Islam. No disrespect to Islam. I don't think you guys would call him a bastard or anything like that. I don't know enough about Islam. We're going to get some Muslims on. Trust me. We're going to make this okay.
R.I.P.
All
Steve.
that to say, he loves this guy, his son, Isaac. And then, God, I was going to read the story, but we don't need it. I'm going to just summarize it.
Yeah.
So God says, the first verse, he says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said this to Abraham, here I am. He replied, then God said, this is Genesis chapter 22, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. So early the next morning, Abraham takes him right before he's about to kill his son, who he loves, the most important thing to him. The angel of God comes and says, hey, don't do it. Look, there's a goat, sacrifice the goat. And everybody loves this, and this is like the biggest thing of faith. Like, wow, I can't believe he was going to sacrifice his son for God. Isn't he incredible? No.
Yeah.
No.
Isaac is fucked up after that.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a fucked up thing to do.
Yeah.
And this is one reason why I was going to talk about this earlier, is we need to push back against things that try to tell us that God is this way, but we know in our hearts God is not that way. There is a rabbi. I've been trying to I've been into this shit for a while, but I haven't. Like 10 years ago, the 10 years after I left the ministry, I was reading everything, theology, rabbis, trying to find all this stuff to try to make it make sense to me. And by doing that, I would find some pretty cool, like renegade theological thinkers. I can't find this guy now, but there was a guy who said at the time the main gods in that area, this is a long time ago, I think it was like Baal, that's Baal.
Oh, yeah.
And there was another one too, but a big part of these gods were child sacrifice. You guys just did something on Apocalypto about people like murdering virgins and stuff on Isimo, right? This is like a big, the main religions is people would murder their kids for their gods. Mm-hmm. And God said very early on, I'm not like those gods. This rabbi believes that up until this point, God spoke to Abraham regularly, 3, 4, 5 times in the Bible. And this rabbi believed that the test was not that Abraham would be willing to sacrifice his son, but that Abraham would push back against God and say, you are not like these other gods. I know you, God. You would never ask me to sacrifice my kid. That is not the kind of God who you are. And that's what God was looking for Abraham. And that because he didn't do that, God never speaks to him again in the Bible, which is true. Even God, I just read that right now. God tells him, hey, I want you to do this thing. And then after he passes the test, the angel of the Lord, which is like a head angel, but God doesn't say, oh, great job. You never see God talk to Abraham again. And this rabbi proposes that the test was for Abraham to push back and say, nope, the God I know isn't like that. I know him, and he would never ask me to do that thing. That's not what James is talking about right here. But to me, I think that is a very interesting concept, and it's what I believe that modern believers need to do. People who have left the church, people who still hear God's voice in their own way, still want to pursue God in their own way. I think we have to break away from certain teachings in the Bible that we know are incorrect, I know very early on for me, like gay stuff in the Bible or in Christianity, it always bugged me. Mm-hmm. Like I always knew, and when I was young, you don't know, and you're like, yeah, you fucking sickos, you know. You're, but then all you have to do is meet a gay person, and you realize, no, I mean, nobody would choose this like life. It's so miserable, especially me growing up. It's way better now. Man, these gay kids are loving life on TikTok. They're proud. They're having a great time. But growing up, 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, as far as I can remember in America, I don't know before that. At some point, it may have changed. But being gay has always been a burden historically. So I always knew, I always knew they didn't choose to be gay. I was like, they're just born that way. And then the other, I don't know if you'd ever heard this, Gerardo, but then the answer to that, and this is all from very like generous Christians, when they're being like, even if they are born that way, then God wants them to be by themselves. It's kind of their sin to carry, their burden, you know, so to not be with anyone. And I remember thinking that and believing that for a little while. But then ultimately, I was like, God doesn't want us to be alone. If God is anything, it's relationships. And I was like, that's fucking bullshit. Mm-hmm. And I knew that Jesus called God the most loving father. And I was like, no father would want his kids to be alone. If someone's born that way, that's how they're made. And they want them to have relationships. They want them to experience romance and sex and all those things like that.
Yeah, my church taught me to, if you want to lead a holy life, you're either a priest, married through the church, or single. Yeah. No in between. Definitely no premarital sex or anything like that. But yeah, that's what they would have us to believe. But it's like a nun without the outfit.
Yeah, they think it, and even I mean the idea of nuns and priests being celibate. That came so much further. Jesus definitely didn't mention anything about that. But all that to say that what this podcast is about is that we can read these, we can understand that men who may have been good intention. But, you know, life was different 2,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 500 years ago. They did not know everything. And that it's our job, if we want to pursue God in whatever that way that means to you, to push back against ideas that don't sound like a God of love. I believe like one of the few things that's steadfast about God is love, is forgiveness, is truth, is reconciliation. A lot of those powerful things. Probably nonviolence. I'm not comfortable saying nonviolence yet because I think nonviolence fucking sucks. I think it's hard. Yeah. I think it's something I absolutely, I believe Christ believed in. I think it upset his followers. They were mad. Christ's followers, the disciples, wanted him to be the Messiah that helps overthrow the Roman government, and he just fucking died. I think it's part of the reason why Judas betrays him is because he was not acting the way he wanted him to be. I think probably the way of Christ and God ultimately is nonviolence. But like I said, I'm not there yet. I don't want to talk like that. Yeah. Because the nonviolence is it's too crazy. Yeah. I don't like it. It's the idea of letting someone beat the shit out of you or murder you. It goes against everything. At this point, I'm not there, and I'm not willing to say, oh yeah, this is great. To me, we're just talking about ideas.
It would be nice if everyone was that way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I do believe that this world is ransomed by something called Walter Wink? He has this great book. And I do believe that capitalism and this world is kind of like controlled by something called the domination system, that we run things with might and violence and power, but that's just not the way of God. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not there yet. If I could honestly say that, I do believe it. It's probably true. Just like I do believe a lot of Buddhist stuff, but I'm not there yet. So thank you guys so much for listening. Please subscribe for YouTube. On YouTube, our channel. Tell your friends if you think people want to listen to this. Subscribe at Apple Podcasts. Leave a review and we'll read it right here. Subscribe on Apple. And please subscribe to our Patreon. We got a lot of great we've got a lot of great content for you coming out all of the time. I'm gonna hop on TikTok, guys. Me and Gerardo, I was telling him I've got to master it. I got to do it my way. You know, I kill on Instagram. I kill on Twitter. Time to start killing over there with the kids. I love you so much. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.
Later on.